On this episode of Game Shack, I'm going to talk about Arcade1ups' disastrous week that they just had, and really a whole year so far, and I'm going to give them some ways that they can right the ship and make people in the home arcade community a lot happier. Coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I am your host, JDV. Thank you for stopping by the channel. As a real quick reminder, you are this channel sponsor, so if you could give us a thumbs up on the way out the door, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell if you aren't already doing so. All right, well, it's been a tough start to the year for Arcade1up, what with the credible accusations of them stealing website from really the OG home arcadist Glenn over at Glenn's Retro Show, to credible accusations of them stealing joystick and controller deck designs, to them not sharing required code as needed for their MAME emulations, to them scheduling community shows and then canceling them without explanation, to them implying implicitly that there was Mortal Kombat 4 on some of their cabs, only to be shot down by such a person as Ed Boon himself, to Arcade1ups then having to issue a public apology to Warner Brothers and the people who own Mortal Kombat's IP, to a series of other sort of quality control issues that we know about from the previous year, to them not announcing any new game titles so far for 2023, and the whole big brew of it has become a rather toxic disaster mess for Arcade1up. But I do think that there is a way for them to right the ship, and I'm going to talk about a little bit how they can do that, but also why it's important that they do so. And the reason why it is important for Arcade1up to become a better citizen of the community, so to speak, is that they are the biggest voice in that community. They have sold cabinets to the tunes of millions, while their competitors like iArcade and AtGames have sold cabinets in the numbers of thousands, maybe tens of thousands, but nowhere near the same volume as Arcade1up. Arcade1up continues to be the dominant manufacturer in this market segment, and in many ways did popularize and make the explosion of interest in this hobby really happen. They really are the kind of the grandfather or godfather of this market segment, and for that they deserve all the kudos in the world. And of course they do make some very, very nice products. By starting their own Facebook fan page and trying to do their own community outreach videos, although that's gotten off to a rocky start, the fact is Arcade1up is trying to recognize the fact that the home hobbyist in the 3/4 scale arcade market segment is an important force. Now, the home hobbyist probably does not represent yet a majority of sales. That probably belongs to the 1 or 2 time buyer, casual buyer who would maybe walk through a Walmart or a Sam's Club and see NFL Blitz or Miss Pac-Man, games like that, and buy that kind of on a whim, particularly if it was on a sale, say during Black Friday. Here then are some friendly pieces of advice that I could give to Arcade1up that can maybe right the ship and get people who are in the home arcade segment a little bit more on their side. Well, the first thing I would say is that the first rule of holes is that if you're in one, stop digging. And what that means is stop doing these kind of self-created or self-inflicted wounds upon themselves. They had to know that shutting down or stealing Glenn's site was going to cause problems. They should have known that them not sharing the information with MAME and the other things that they were required to do to use those emulators was eventually going to catch up with them. They have to stop hinting of games that aren't going to be available on these cabs in an effort to sell those cabs. I mean, having Ed Boon publicly come out and slap you down is a really bad thing. Having to publicly apologize to Warner Brothers ain't the best look for a company that has made veritable truckloads of money from selling these cabs. Again, they have sold millions of these cabs, and even if their profit margin on these things is only $50 each, well, figure it out. That means that they have got to be rolling in money, or at least they should be, and you would expect a company that is the leader in any kind of market segment like this should be behaving better. Next piece of advice is sort of related to the first thing is let's have some mea culpas. Let's have some people stop saying that they're going to be transparent, when in fact we know they haven't been transparent, and simply issue apologies. Now, you already had to issue one out to Warner Brothers so you don't get sued out of existence apparently, but issue them to other people, maybe to the community as a whole. Say, hey, we messed up. We, in retrospect, should have been sharing this required information on the MAME site and all of that right from the start. We should have never taken Glenn's website away from him and all this other kind of thing. Just say, hey, we have made some mistakes. We made some mistakes when we put in those lower grade monitors. When we're sorry about those marquees and teeny sounding speakers and whatever's going on with Killer Instinct right now. All of that stuff, say, hey, our bad. We are going to do better moving forward. You don't have to necessarily be more transparent. You just have to walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. And I guess that would be my biggest piece of advice at all, lastly, is show some love to the community. Have this not be just a profit-making machine, but rather have a company that makes it feel like you're doing this because you love what you're doing, as opposed to something that you kind of lucked into, like winning the lottery. And that's kind of what it feels like right now. Almost all of the issues that they've had, from putting out cabs that had clear design defects, like the Simpsons, to all of the outrage from how they've treated Glenn and how they've maybe not been above board with their emulations and all of that. All of it has the feel of a kind of a turn and burn nightclub, where you know the nightclub is going to be burned down at the end of 5 years, so squeeze it for all of the money you can before you torch it, like in Goodfellas. That is what it feels like. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it does have that feel to it. Well, the best way to alleviate all that is to stop doing that, to actually kind of change the corporate outlook in terms of, we need to make money now, this quarter, and look at it as something that, hey, you guys could be in business 5 years from now. You should be. You guys could be in business 10 years from now. Look at it and treat your business a little bit less like a drunken sailor who's gotten to port for the first time and has a wad of cash in his hands, and more like an experienced admiral who has to control the whole fleet, if that makes any kind of sense at all. In other words, act a little bit more grown up. Treat the people in this community with respect. Treat your buyers with respect. So don't say that something's going to be online like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and then still not have it be online. So in other words, stop some of the kind of false advertising, the deceptive policies that's going on. Lastly, I would say this. I do think that there is some truth to the idea that because they have announced no new titles this year, that has hurt as well, because people did want that. The only thing I could say to that is that they did put out a huge amount of titles in 2022, games that people did want to see, like Blitz, T2, and Simpsons. You know, I'm not quite sure when if Tron came out in 2022 or not. But anyway, we had a lot in the last year. We've seen a lot of good stuff come out of Arcade1ups, even though maybe it was flawed and a little too expensive. So I think people are kind of expecting that same output in terms of new titles being released, and that hasn't happened. I think 19K Fox actually has a great idea in his 3 kind of controller output cab, where you take some existing games that we know they have the rights to, put them on a really good 3-person cab, maybe a slight design change. And if you're going to give us recycles, well, give us recycles in a cab that we can actually have 3 people at and play. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think there are some other ideas that they can come out there, like just put out a generic shooting cab and put 10 shooting games on there. I think that is a completely legitimate idea, and it is one that where there is just no other competition in this market space. So, you know, be smart. I mean, I can understand that you can't always put out brand new niche cabs. On the other hand, the deluxe cabs aren't really aimed at the hobbyist so much as somebody walking through Walmart, and I'm not sure that's going to feed the bulldog. Anyway, so that's it. So there's some helpful tips, hopefully. I mean, the main thing is, you know, just do better. Treat people like people. Treat them with respect. Act like you've been there before. Act like this company is going to be around for a long time. And guess what? It might just be. All right, if you like this sort of content, give me a thumbs up on the way out the door. Subscribe if you haven't already. Love each other. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.